And ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the prosecution is not going to get that man today. No, because I'm going to get him.
This is the Hagmann and Hagmann Report for today. It's Wednesday, April 17th, 2013. I'm Doug Hagmann. I'm the co-host. With me is my son, Joe Hagmann. We're both in studio today. This is a live broadcast. Folks, you're about to hear for the next 3 hours unbiased, uncensored news, analysis, information that you need to know in the times in which we live. We broadcast for the new listener, for the new listeners. We broadcast live each and every weeknight from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. You can find us on the Internet via our home base at homelandsecurityus.com. Folks, just follow the links either to listen live right on the top of the page or for the archives on the top of the page. For those of you who want to subscribe via RSS feed, we have instructions on how to do that as well. And you can subscribe to us via iTunes. Now, please note, I've been getting so many emails about this. Our iTunes address has changed. The reason it's changed is because we have all of our shows now archived on iTunes. Before, there were only... It was spotty on how you can get our shows. Now, all of our iTunes or all of our shows are available, accessible via iTunes. You have to reset your iTunes connection. Do so by going to homelandsecurityus.com, clicking the iTunes RSS feed, and subscribing that way. Okay, it's again the URL, the address, the place that points to our show has changed. iTunes made this change. Therefore, you've got to make it manually or via our link at homelandsecurityus.com. And we're very proud to be be professional colleagues of Canada Free Press to the north. I'm going to say hello to Canada Free Press, our friends there as well. Folks, we've got a lot of information to talk about this evening. Joe's going to be joining me shortly. He is working on some audio issues on his end.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, welcome.
Oh, it's ridiculous. I've got a nice new headset, wireless headset, and it can't configure it. I can't configure it. Not that I have invested a lot of time, but just kind of irritating. I guess we're used to the computers fixing themselves, configuring themselves, but this one doesn't want to comply. So,
well, I'll tell you what. Here are some of the issues we're going to be talking about this evening. Of course, we're going to be reporting on what our take is in the Boston situation. Now, just a few things about this. Boy, people are just going off in all different directions on this, and isn't it? Boy,
wait till you hear what I got to say.
Yeah, I can only imagine. What we need to do at this point, before we jump to any conclusions, what we need to do is allow the investigators to present their case to the American public, to us, present their case. In other words, we have to let them do what they get paid to do, and that is to investigate, and upon collecting enough evidence, make an arrest. Okay, and that's what we have to allow.
Well,
now,
that gets kind of clouded when you have things airing such as this immediately after the attack, before any information is really available.
Let me ask you about domestic terrorism as a category. Normally, domestic terrorist people tend to be on the far right, although that's not a good category, just extremists, let's call them that. Do they advertise after they do something like this? Do they try to get credit as a group, or they just hate America so much, or its politics, or its government, that they just want to do the damage? They don't care if they get public credit, if you will.
What we'll see over the coming couple of hours and days is lots of people taking credit for this. We'll probably have Al-Qaeda take credit for it. We'll have domestic terrorists take credit for it, and it'll be the responsibility of the FBI and the Boston police to figure out if any of those are actually real. Cases like Timothy McVeigh destroying the Oklahoma City courthouse, federal building, no one took credit for that. So it might be some time or never that someone actually takes credit for this, but lots of people will say they were responsible for it.
Yeah, I was just thinking, again, it's an early situation, but going after the Kennedy Library, not something at Bunker Hill, not something from the Freedom Trail or anything that kind of historic, but a modern political figure of the Democratic Party. Does that tell you anything?
Okay. All right.
And this was one of many outlets, that being Chris Matthews of MSNBC, who, right out of the gate, right-wing extremist. And David Axelrod had this to say. David Axelrod being the former, what was he for Obama?
Former advisor, campaign man. Go ahead.
Okay.
At this point, and they seem, I was told that the reason he didn't, they debated certain words, and that does matter, and that because when the president says terrorist attack, that's a whole lot different than when Dianne Feinstein says it. No offense to Dianne Feinstein.
Absolutely. And the word has taken on a different meaning since 9/11. You use those words, and it means something very specific in people's minds. And I'm sure what was going through the president's mind is, we really don't know who did this. It was tax day. Was it someone who was, you just don't know. And so I think his attitude is, let's not put any inference into this. Let's just make clear that we're going to get the people responsible.
Anything you say could prejudge whether fair.
And have reverberations all over the world.
Do you have it about tax day, or somehow it's relating to...
You're muted.
I'm sorry. It was tax day, as Axelrod said, inferring that there is some kind of correlation between tax day and anti-government sentiment. So therefore, we know the Tea Party is against taxes. The anti-government extremists, constitutionalists are against overtaxation. But the biggest news of the day today is this, that the Senate did not pass the gun control bill.
Right, which we're going to get to in a little bit. But what I want to say about this, about Boston, is this. You have this feeding frenzy of the media. You've got the different agendas. And really, I don't care if it's Chris Matthews on the left or, I don't know, Sean Hannity on the right. The names don't matter. The agendas matter. The whole thing is this. We have to look at the facts. The truth must prevail, minus the agenda. Now, it's interesting because hold on a second. I'm looking at a lot of things here. You've got a guy, for example, who provided a lot of assistance at the Boston Marathon bombing, noted as a hero, at least in the press. He was questioned by the feds at his house. They took his clothes. They took his shoes, his pants, his T-shirt. Can we say Richard Jewell? Do you remember from the Olympics bombing back in 1996 when, in fact, it was Eric Rudolph? A hero, taking this man who is portrayed as a hero now as a suspect. Also, I watched today the news go from saying we have an arrest, there's an arrest made, to no, there's no arrest, we have a person of interest, no, there's no person of interest, oh, it's a Saudi, no, it's a white person, it's this, it's that, and today.
Okay.
All through today. And I guess what I'm trying to tell everyone is, look, don't get caught up. Don't be a part of this absolute frenzied mess that we're seeing. Now, what we need to do is respond to what we see and what we're told. Let's monitor the things as they happen. We take in all of the information. We note we know what's taking place. We note that there's chaos, but we also note there's inconsistencies. Take everything in. Just let everything, just listen. Just sit there. You've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use it in that proportion. Let's find out what the alleged evidence is, what the allegations are, or what the preponderance of evidence is with respect to the suspect or suspects, and I believe it will be plural. And then watch carefully what the government does, how they take this in terms of motive. We know the means, essentially, or at least we know what we're told the means are. But the bottom line, what I'm trying to get to is this. The proof of the pudding, in this case, is going to be when they identify a suspect, they're going to affix a motive. And at that point, we will have a better understanding of the compass, the direction that this case is going to take. Any talk before that is going to be speculative and inflammatory. And this is exactly what is wanted on both sides of the aisle. And if we say it's disingenuous on the progressive side, we have to be consistent and say it's disingenuous on the conservative side as well. Do we not?
It depends there. Now, we have eyewitness reports. We have several different pieces of evidence that the media is not doing their proper job in reporting, or they are being told how and what to report and how to do it, what to show, what not to show.
And that's my point. That's my point. You can't fall into that. You can't be a part of that. You can't. You just can't make yourself a part of that.
A lot of people say, first-hand accounts are unreliable, and I've heard you say this before, and other people say it, and I disagree, because I would say that there are unreliable people when it comes to something like this happening. People see, you could be standing right next to each other, and people will see two different things because of the adrenaline, the fear, all the chaos going on. But there are those that still, under those circumstances, under the pressure, under the adrenaline, can know what they're seeing, can comprehend.
Right, but now there's a difference here, and no one is explaining the difference. The first-hand accounts, the initial accounts of an incident, as they are broadcast over the media, are unreliable. A lot of them are unreliable. A lot of the accounts. Do you understand what was it? Did I say something funny there?
No, I just heard it wrong. But
okay,
I would say that I'm not sure. I'm conflicted because we have such enemy that the levels they will go to confuse or to mislead.
You're making my point for me.
You're
making my point.
Insane. I mean, I'm uploading a clip. I'm going to upload a clip right now from 9/11 to give you guys an example of that. It's just a short clip, and I'll let you know when I get it going here.
Okay. But see, we cannot feed, we don't feed the trolls. We don't feed into that that scenario which you're talking about. Now, there's two people. Just for example, there's two people standing side by side looking at, we'll say, a car accident take place, or we'll use the bombing. there are 2 or 3 or 4 people who watch the events take place at the bombing, at the site, for example.
What about all the video cameras?
No, I'm getting to that, but let's just talk about the human eye for the moment. You've got the number of witnesses that see the very same thing or see similar things. If they're looking at the same thing, that will give varied accounts of that. And we've run into this every single time we've had a case that involves eyewitness accounts. You get multiple accounts. There's a key here, though. Okay, now if you've got, let's have a finite number of witnesses for this example, 6 witnesses, manageable number, and you have 6 people who see an event take place. If those 6 people all say the same thing with what they saw, my BS antenna goes up, because obviously the people are going to see the things in different perspectives based upon their own personal experiences, their own personal feelings. I mean, there's going to be their own flavor added to what they saw. Okay? So
what you're saying is that if people's stories sound way too similar, that there might be...
Then you've got collusion.
Right. People talking about what they're going to say before they say.
Okay. Correct. Now, that's example number 1. Now you take the same 6 people, for example, and you've got wide disparity among what they saw. All right. That's usually what happens, by the way. But there are common elements within those stories that you use as, we'll say, the basis for the investigation. For example, maybe 4 or 5 or the majority of the 6 have seen or witnessed a person or persons with, we'll say, a backpack. Fine. What you do is you work from the outside in a case like this. You don't work from the inside out. Just as you don't take somebody or just as you don't work from a conclusion inward to a suspect, you work the evidence as you get it. But this is not what's taking place in the media. And I for one, and I, it's interesting because of the number of interviews I've done over the last 72 hours, there are people that want to put me, for example, in a corner, and I don't want to go there. And this is what the media is doing. They're zeroing in. You've got the progressives zeroing in on the right wing, conservative, Bible-believing Christian gun owner people.
And it's not just the progressives.
It is, whatever element.
It is the one party, the one satanic-led party in this nation.
But at the base, though, it's the progressive base that leads us. I mean, if we were to identify a group of people, it would be the progressives. But I agree with you. Now here's the thing. But here's the kicker. If you look at, for example, if you would have followed, and I had some time today, because I had a personal situation that kind of took me out of the game for a while. So I was relegated to watching the evolution of news, and I was astounded by the numbers, by how often the news changed, by how often the headlines changed, by how many retractions were made. CNN had to retract statements, and our own local newspaper and news stations were copying what CNN said. It was a frenzy. It was just an incredible state of affairs. But the real game, I don't even want to use that word game, the real issue is going to begin once they identify and commit themselves to a suspect or suspects. When you are told, whether it's tomorrow, late tonight, the following day, or a week from now, when you are told it is John Smith who we are charging with this crime, John Smith and person or persons unknown, you're muted again. Okay, or if it's Ali Ahmed, okay, regardless of the name, as soon as that distinction, as soon as that is made, that announcement is made, it is evidence. I will classify, for example, what Alex+Jones has on his website with the images. Others have independent images. I would go evidence. It's set up against what the official story is at that point. To do so now is premature. To jump to conclusions is not premature. It's not whether I'm watching the St. Paul. Well, if you have somebody whose head is moving or not moving or moving in the opposite direction, it's not, obviously. It's not consistent with what's taking place. And we see that in some of the images. We've got people watching the finish line, and then one, maybe even two people watching something totally different, as if they are on other pictures. But see, I guess here's the bottom line here. We have to wait, because right now, the Justice Department, or the authorities, if you will, committed. They're committed. They are committed to announcing or making an arrest. And because of that fact, we have the luxury, and I use the word only, we have the ability, perhaps, then to evidence at the periphery, because we don't have, outside of our sources, we don't have the knowledge that, for example, we don't have the serial number or the various information from the bomb itself. We don't have that information. The FBI does, the FBI lab does. Okay, it's only after the government commits and says, all right, now we are going to charge John Doe 1 and John Doe 2, or Sarah Jane 1 and Sarah Jane and John Doe 1 and John. Once they make that commitment, then we make the assessment, because then they've already telegraphed if there is an agenda behind it, if there is something that is maybe pre-planned, if this is a conspiracy. And I've got my own reasons to believe that it is, but then there's information out there that suggests it may not be. But we'll be in a better position to know. I guess I'm just really, really interested, because we've learned a lot since 9/11. It's been 12 years roughly since 9/11. We have learned a lot during the period of time, and even we've learned a lot in hindsight to study the templates, of the false flags, to study the template of the real terrorists. All right, is this making sense, or am I just like talking? Is this a little bit of?
I agree that we need to be diligent and patient to be accurate. I don't necessarily agree. I mean, we see the United States government with their paid media, okay, that they use to operate and influence the American people with spewing known lies in order to advance their agenda. Now, I'm not discounting that. For us not to report information that is verified. Example,
I'm not saying not to do that either.
The University of Mobile coach who heard the announcements of the bomb training or bomb drill going on before and after the bombing. I mean, you can't. I mean, that's something you don't have to sit around and wait for the government to say, "Oh, yes, this happened." You report that. If it's verified, documented, the local news station ran with it, the guy went on TV and said what happened, that's verifiable from his. I mean, he's saying this.
I get that.
No, it's saying, there's mysterious right-wing conspiracy people behind this. That is like me saying, as soon as it happens, well, I think the KKK. Right.
No. See, look, I agree with all that. Perhaps I was deficient in my explanation. I guess what I'm saying to you is we are watching this unfold in real time. Let this unfold in real time. Let's watch what they do, meaning the government, meaning the investigative arm of the government. Now, I will say this. There's a huge difference between the boots on the ground, collecting I don't want to be graphic, but collecting the bits of flesh and collecting the bits of shrapnel, and the doctors in the hospital taking shrapnel out of the victims. There is a lot of, I mean, these are the people. These are the people that we rely on and we believe in to tell us the truth. What happens is this. We have others at the higher levels taking that information and instead of saying, okay, here it is, ladies and gentlemen, here is the truth, the people at the higher levels will spin that information to make it fit a specific agenda. So as we watch things unfold in real time, you collect this evidence. You evaluate the evidence as documentation as when you get it. You put it in the pile somewhere, for example. You watch it, you guard it, you look at it, you make any assessments on it, but wait for that moment in time when the government comes out and says, okay, this is what happened. Now, then at that point, you see if it comports, if the official story comports with what you've collected, and if in any way that makes sense, what you've collected makes sense with the official story, and vice versa. And then from that point, you can evaluate what, because they're going to be telegraphing, the government is going to essentially be telegraphing to the public where they're taking this or in what direction this is headed. And that, I believe, the direction in which this is headed, it's to me, it almost doesn't matter if you've got and I say almost, but it doesn't matter if the perpetrator in this case is an Islamic terrorist or a right-wing Bible-carrying gun zealot. Now, the reason I say that is this. It certainly does matter in practicality, but how it is reported, how it is handled by the Justice Department, how it is spun, whether it's either one of those two or something in the middle, is the key here. And therefore, we can gain a great deal of understanding of the agenda. I mean, we think we know the agenda of this Obama regime, of this Justice Department. I understand that. I do. But let's see it play out. Because it's almost as if people who've conducted surveillance know this. It takes patience. You're watching something. You've got to watch something happen or wait for something to happen. You get very impatient. 3-4 hours go by, nothing happens. It's a very difficult process, but it requires patience. But when finally things do go into fall into place, then at that point, I mean, it's great when you can actually take when it finally happens. I guess what I'm saying is this: let's see how this regime takes the evidence, what they do with it, what the media does with it. You might say, well, I know it doesn't matter. Chris Matthews, or whatever, he's going to say this or say that. Fine. At that point, we can identify and call these people out. But it's hard to call somebody out without having the definitive evidence that is given to us by the very people we pay or are supposed to pay to, you can't do that before. Right now, there's nothing but speculation. Some of it informed speculation, some not. That's all I'm saying. I just wait, calm down, because otherwise you get this frenzy that we've seen, the retractions, and what muddies up an investigation more than, I thought they arrested this guy, or I thought they were going to. No, it muddies the waters, and the muddier the water, the harder it is to see the truth. So let's kind of be a spectator rather than an active participant in the game of muddying the water. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but I think it's an important aspect of what we need to do. Because
let me simplify what you just said. We should not
unmute. I think. I can hear you.
We're having sound problems. The chat room has been saying the sound was off for a while, ever since I tried to play that clip.
All right.
But the sound is continuously going through Cuban, the Hagmann and HagmannReport.com, www.thehagmannandHagmannReport.com, if you cannot listen live on BTR. But the sound should be back up. It took me, I had to log out of the studio. I couldn't log back in for like 10 minutes. It wouldn't let me log back in.
All right, but I got a report that from Christians United that our audio is fine. So okay, all right. So yeah, go ahead and simplify what I was trying to say here.
Okay, we can't spread known falsehoods or just speculation as fact. We have to have something evidence to back up what we're saying, and that's all.
Well, no, it's more than that. It's really much more than that. But yes, that's part of it. What's really going to be telling is when they identify the individual or individuals involved. What's going to be telling us how they handle this. Okay, whether they, for example, Fort Hood shooting. Look at that. Look at the Fort Hood shooting. We had a situation where it was a clear case of Islamic terrorism there. The motive was purely Islamic. The shootings were at the hands of Nadal Hassan. It was Islamic in nature, the motive, yet it was classified as workplace violence. Is this what we're going to see here in this case? If that is the case, then we know we'll have a better idea, for example, of what the next step in the process of the globalist agenda will be, or the next step of the process of these leaders of this country will be. That's all I'm saying. But meanwhile, you collect your own evidence. You collect the evidence that you find. You grab onto it. I mean, Alex Jones is doing a fantastic job, for example, in one case, because I spoke with him, yesterday, I guess it was, and he's doing a fantastic job. His reporters are doing a fantastic job. The contributors are doing a fantastic job. So hold on. That will be addressed what they knew before, during, and after. So we can take that information, once that information is publicly announced, or contained in the criminal type of complaint, which I'm sure will be released, or at least some of it will. And then we take that information and we compare it to, we take the information that you just noted, we compare it to the official government narrative. The official government got ammunition to say, wait, these are questions that need to be answered. These are issues that need to be addressed. That's what we have, and this is exactly how we have to do it in order to maintain the integrity, our integrity. Now, I certainly right now believe that there is absolute chaos associated with this investigation. Absolute chaos. And 90% of the chaos is by the media, is being perpetrated by the media. Absolute chaos. Now, is that chaos deliberate? In some cases, I believe it is. Some of it today, I believe it is. People are just trying to be first. Without regard to being wrong, they want to be first. And there's a reason why we don't report first necessarily unless we have all the facts we can authenticate them. Being first doesn't necessarily mean being right or correct. And we saw example after example of that today. And I spent on making this case. We also have the recent incidents. Isn't it awful interesting, for example, after 9/11, a month later, a month and a half later, you had the anthrax attacks of 2001. Now, you had this attack on American soil in Boston, and now you've got ricin being delivered via mail to Obama and others. Is this a template? Is this part of a template that we've seen in the past? That's it, because don't forget the anthrax came in 2001, although the FBI claims it has been solved and the case is closed. There are many, many this whole thing right now is just well, I won't use the term I would normally use, but this whole thing right now is a mess. It's nothing but chaos. And to make matters worse, not to make matters worse, but to complicate matters as well, don't forget, we have gun legislation that right now failed, as you mentioned earlier. And is this part of it? Could this, when I say part of it, could this have any effect on the gun legislation? Because we know factually that this Obama regime and people in power, they cannot have us armed and implement a police state at the same time. So the fact that this gun legislation did not pass, is this part of the equation? Is there any relation between this and what happened in Boston? Is there any relation with this and what happened with the rights matters? See, to me, look at everything. Some things do happen out of sequence. Some things happen that are not part of the larger, just due to the fact of human nature and human events. Not everything necessarily is connected, but then we cannot allow ourselves the room to say, well, this is to dismiss everything out of hand, or just to dismiss one or two things out of hand. I guess my whole idea is, let's approach this logically, with caution, with understanding, with precision, the precision necessary.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but it's funny that you're saying what you're saying, and I just found an article released by the FBI. Exercise caution in attempt to verify information through appropriate official channels before reporting. After multiple media outlets, especially CNN, wrongfully reported an arrest had been made in Boston, the FBI is urging media to exercise caution in an attempt to verify information through appropriate official channels before reporting. Okay, this from the Weekly Standard.
So the key phrase there is through appropriate, what they're saying is verify through appropriate channels. I'm not saying that.
No. I'm saying that it's crazy for them to sit here and to lecture people on what they're not saying, don't verify information before you report it. They're saying, like you said, through appropriate channels, and what they deem appropriate definitely is not the alternative media, because that's listed as a possible.
Wait. What I'm saying is, I'm not saying through appropriate channels.
I said what you just said or pointed out.
Okay. Oh, all right.
So it goes on to say, contrary to widespread reporting, no arrests have been made in connection with the Boston Marathon attack. Over the past day and a half, there have been a number of press reports based on information from unofficial sources that have been inaccurate. Now, we received a photo of a man on his knees, surrounded by police officers. CNN did report yesterday that there was a man. They came right out and said a man, a Saudi man. They even said talked about his visa. Very strange, especially to come out and have to say there's nobody in custody. Well, now they're saying their suspect is identified. He's identified through video camera. And what could be a major break in the Boston Marathon case, investigators are on the hunt for a man seen in a department store surveillance video dropping off a bag at the site of the bombings. A Boston politician said Wednesday. I don't think that's an appropriate source. Politicians are not very credible with their information. Anyway, separately, a law enforcement official confirmed that authorities have found an image of a potential suspect but don't know his name. The development, less than 48 hours after the attack, that left 3 people dead and more than 170 wounded, marked a possible turning point in a case that has investigators analyzing photos, videos, frame by frame, for clues to who might have carried out the twin bombings and why. Now, they say twin bombings. Don't forget there were 5 explosive devices, reportedly 5 devices total. So there's things that come and go with these stories. I guarantee this Local 15 coverage, and we can try to play the audio. What I tried to play before was an audio of Dick Cheney from 2006 saying, we've never made the case that Osama bin Laden had anything to do with 9/11. The evidence has never been found. Those are basically his exact words. And everybody remembers the name Osama bin Laden being repeated as often, if not more, as the Sandy Hook incident when it comes to gun control debates. 9/11, you think of Osama bin Laden right away. Then you have the vice president saying, well, we never made the case, nor do we have any evidence linking Osama bin Laden to 9/11. And he was never on his FBI most wanted list. That was never a crime he was wanted for. So I feel like we just spent an hour going over things that we really could have done in 10 minutes, but that's okay because we do need to talk this out to a certain extent. But this is not right. When you think of it's Patriot Day, when you think of the announcements that were being made, the Boston Globe saying they were running the drills, bomb squad was running a drill, the police presence, and this is my problem with the police presence. If they had a threat, why not stop the marathon, put the marathon on hold for a minute or however long it takes? Isn't people's safety more important than saving face for, stopping a marathon and not having anything happen? They don't want to look bad, I'd imagine. That's the reasoning behind why they wouldn't, say, somebody calls a bomb threat into a movie theater and the movie theater is packed. Usually, people say, there's a bomb threat called in. Don't panic. Go to your nearest exit. But no, we didn't see any of that. They tried to, whatever they tried to do, if it was a drill or if it was a real threat that they got, a drill gone bad or a threat that they didn't take proper action to make sure people's safety was first and foremost.
No, look, I agree. Apparently, a lot of people agree with you that we could have probably dispensed with this in 10 minutes. I guess I've seen so much today of accusations that's ripping people apart in terms of getting at the truth. There is this massive agenda on all sides, on different sides, both sides, any side. Whether it's pro-Second Amendment or anti-Second Amendment, to affix the blame on something that has yet to be identified officially and spin things to misevaluate evidence. But apparently I did a very, very poor job in explaining that. So based on the messages and emails I've been getting, I've done a very poor job in explaining my point of view. All I'm saying is when you look at the people who are ripping others apart, we're supposed to be on the same side, are we not? Are we not supposed to be on the same side?
Being on the same side is different than...
I'm talking about truth. Are we not supposed to...
Of course.
Truth? Okay.
The truth is the objective, and if that interferes with people's personal agendas, preconceived notions, feelings, beliefs, then that is just too bad, I guess, because the truth is first and foremost.
Right.
If not, we're lying if we're not reporting truth.
Exactly. We have to report the truth and not be a part of the chaos. We have to be above the chaos and above the accusations until we come to the point in time when we can say, all right, this is what the government's saying, this is what the press is saying, This is what other people have amassed in terms of evidence. Let's evaluate from here. Then we can find out the intent of the people who, the high-level government officials. We can find out, and obviously anticipate their course of action. That's the only thing I'm saying. I suppose I could have said that in 5 minutes and been done with it. But after watching today the chaos, the misinformation, some of it, I believe, was deliberate misinformation. I think I had to spend some time on it to really, to me, to walk this through. And if people are so damn impatient as to not understand, well, you know what? Then make your own decisions and turn on the reruns of I Love Lucy, and I don't have a problem with that, okay? But we're dealing with the future of our country. We're dealing with the future of our population. We're dealing with the future. We're dealing with the assassination of truth here. And everyone wants the 2 seconds, the truth in 2 seconds. Everyone wants information right now. No, not right now. They want it 10 minutes ago, because that's the society we live in. Well, this is not a CSI TV show. This is not Law and Order hour-long mystery where everything flows by production. And I'm calling for responsibility.
No, I agree.
And I haven't seen. And I want people to stop. You got Glenn Beck ripping up Alex+Jones, for God's sake.
Well, right.
What's that about?
It's being irresponsible. It's not the people reporting these strange anomalies or coincidences about this. It is the other side. It is the actual news media. It is CNN reporting that people are in custody. It is MSNBC saying they're right-wing extremists before anybody has an idea. I don't see the alternative media, and I didn't hear Beck today. Or are you speaking of previous times, or are you talking about this incident?
I'm talking about over the course since this happened.
Yes.
Just since this happened. Okay. I'm talking about people that are ripping others apart and falling right into the agenda of the people who want to destroy us. You know what? They're not going to have much of a job. You know why? Because we're doing a good job ourselves of destroying one another in this whole issue. And isn't that the ultimate objective of what these people want? It's kind of like a shooting war. Let the two gangs, let the gangs shoot themselves, and then we're to come in and clean up what's left.
You divide and divide and divide until the one united group is 10 divided groups. And then they're easier to attack and manipulate. And with that, we're going to our first hour break. I know we're having some sound issues out there. We're going to switch as hosts. We're going to be calling in. We'll handle it on our side. We'll take care of it. Thanks for your patience. You're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report this April 17th, 2013, on Wednesday. Talking about Boston, what happened on the marathon there, and more issues on the other side. And we're going to be taking your phone calls in the third hour. And I expect to hear from Jeff from Chelsea, Massachusetts.
Yeah, see how he is.
We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Hi, folks. Doug Hagmann here. You might know me as the co-host from the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, or as a frequent guest on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. If you're like me, you're tired and confused over today's headlines. You just don't know where to turn for accurate, concise information about really what's going on, what's truly going on in today's society. If you don't know where to turn for accurate, well-researched, and properly vetted news, I've got a suggestion. In fact, it's a requirement. Bookmark Canada Free Press. That's CanadaFreePress.com on the Internet. It's just not for Canada. It's for news across the world. Judy McLeod, founding editor, has put together a vast array of talented writers like Kelly O'Connell, Daniel Greenfield, Dr. Eilena Johnson-Powell, a lot of guest columnists, very talented writers. Folks, that's Canada Free Press at CanadaFreePress.com. Now mobile friendly. Follow on Facebook, because without America, there is no free world.
Survival of the fittest. In any and all situations, survival is your number one priority. That requires being tough and thinking smart. And the folks at Freeze Dry Guy are going to help you do just that. They have the long-range patrol ration entrees, what they call the Brick Pack. When you're in survival mode, it is absolutely the best item for your survival pack or bug-out bag. You can go farther, faster, and carry more food with the LRP cold weather ration entrees. Not only do these long-lasting, durable entrees help sustain you or your family through the harshest environment or situation, they are by far the most delicious of their kind. No contest. With a variety of tasty entrees, you can't beat the LRP Brick Packs. Let Freeze Dry Guy help you in your survival situations. Go to freezedryguy.com. That's freezedryguy.com or call 866-404-3663. That's 866-404-FOOD.
You better wake up fast and listen to this, America. The Obama campaign has launched attack squads disguised as truth teams dedicated to intimidating and silencing all political dissent carried over the internet that criticizes the Marxist Obama. Truth squads specifically focused on covering up Obama's endless trail of lies, corruption, and subversion, and using the Gestapo power of our own government to police and censor the internet and shut down websites that dare to carry the real truth about Obama's Marxist coup. Remember the names of these Gestapo-style agencies at work right there in your neighborhood: KeepingHisWord.com, KeepingGOPHonest.com, and AttackWatch.com. KGB, SS, and Gestapo-style police-state gangster organizations at work to silence the important voices of patriot dissent, some of which have already been shut down by Obama's orders. Adolf Hitler would have been proud. We're the 21st century Tea Party patriots.
Joe Biden did refer to them as a bombing. I want to bring in CNN's national security analyst, Peter Bergen. Peter, does this, obviously, we don't want to speculate. We don't know what this was. But is there reason for people who deal in counterterrorism to think that this is an act of terrorism, or suspect it strongly at least?
Sure, although I'm reminded of Oklahoma City, which was a bombing, which was initially treated as a gas explosion. So first reports are often erroneous.
Right.
But, you know, the fact that there were two explosions, two bombings. You know, one of the things I'd be looking at is once the device, if it is a device, is found, is what kind of explosives were used. So, for instance, if it was hydrogen peroxide, this is sort of a signature of Al-Qaeda. If it was more conventional explosives, which are much harder to get hold of now, that might be some other kind of right-wing extremists. And we've seen a number of failed bombing attempts by Al-Qaeda using bombs, Najib al-Azazi and for instance, Manhattan subway in 2009, Faisal Shahzad in Times Square in 2010, the attempt to bring down the Northwest Flight 253 over Detroit in 2009. But we've also seen other extremist groups, right-wing groups, attacking, for instance, trying to attack the Martin Luther King parade in Oregon in 2010. So if it is a device of some kind, you know, we should take the conclusions about where it's coming from in terms of a political persuasion, and it would, the kind of device will indicate, I think, if it has any links to Al-Qaeda, it is much more likely to be a hydrogen peroxide bomb than other kinds of bombs. Basically, the reason for that is hydrogen peroxide is relatively easy to accumulate, whereas, let's say, if you go out and buy something for a fertilizer bomb, you're going to attract a lot of law enforcement attention.
Welcome to Blog Talk Radio. If you desire to speak to the host, please press 1 at any time, and the host will be notified that there is a caller in the queue. Otherwise, please hold and you will be able to
guy that doesn't need a bullhorn to get your attention.
You want answers. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of
We are back, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you can all hear us. Dad, you call me. Sorry for the sound issues. I don't know what was going on. We got that sound of a gunshot calling back into the show again. Very odd. And I recorded it. You want to call me? Okay, I'm going to add you and then answer it and then hang up and hit join call. Thank you for your patience. Let's see. I'll type in the chat. Can you hear me? All right, folks, we are experiencing major technical difficulties.
Why don't you...
Okay. Yes, we hear you. Okay. Those of you who can hear me, excellent.
Raise your hands so we know.
Yeah, this is absolutely insane. I want to... should I play the sound that we...
Yeah, go ahead and play the sound which we were met with when we attempted to connect via our host.
Yeah. That's what we heard
through us
when we called back in. Unreal. I don't understand it. We obviously continue to have these problems, but we're up now. We're back. Hour number 2, a couple minutes late, but here we go.
All right. So we've got the Boston situation right now. We're following very carefully. All I just want to say is, don't rip people who want to get to the truth must not rip each other apart in the process of attempting to get to the truth. That's it, plain and simple. All right, maybe I took the long way around in saying it. For that, I apologize. But the bottom line is, look, let's find out what's going on here. We know the agenda of these Luciferian, these people who want to destroy us. We know their agenda. We're actually victimized by their agenda, in my view, based on what you just heard. The level of frustration is through the roof. It doesn't matter how many times that we are assured that this will never happen again. It happens again. And I just have to apologize, from that. It's a very frustrating situation.
Yeah, and I'm starting a live chat with BTR support. People in the chat are saying the sound is off.
Of course. Why wouldn't it be?
Yeah, this is just a regular day on the Hagmann report.
I'm going to do? I'm going to drop off. Pull me back on.
Okay, you drop off, and let me see if I can play this clip.
There you go. Is that any better?
It says, Troy's sound is off on the blog talk. Joe, Doug, all the shows on BTR are having trouble right now. Okay, thank you, Coldwater. I saw somebody type that in there, too, that another show was having.
Well, I'll tell you, what do we have to do?
It's not on our end. Okay. We need to be patient. We need to talk to Blog Talk and ask them to what the problem is. But in the meantime, folks, those of you that can hear us, I'll put in the chat. You can listen to us live, streaming on Cuban, Christians United Broadcasting Network on Justin TV, www.thehagman and hagmanreport.com, and is spelled out. And there you can get the live audio without any distortion or problems. Now, we were talking about the Boston attacks that were happening. that happened on Monday at the marathon. We have seen the chaotic nature of the news, mainstream news, the people who do this for a living, who are owned and operated by the same people who own and operate the politicians, and they can't, even get their life. Mississippi, federal officials told NBC News that they may appear in court as early as Wednesday night. Both letters carried an identical closing statement, according to an FBI bulletin obtained by NBC News on Wednesday. According to the FBI bulletin, both letters were postmarked on the 8th of April 13th, and out of Memphis, Tennessee, they included the identical phrase, "To see a wrong and not to expose it is to become a silent partner to its countenance." In addition, both letters are signed, "I am KC, and I approve this message." Kind of reminiscent of right after 9/11. Anthrax letters were mailed. Not saying there's a connection.
But this is what I was getting at earlier. You've got a significant event that took place in Boston, and you've got the Ricin letters. You had a significant event on 9/11, and then you had the anthrax letters, although it was separated by, a month, 45 days, I believe it was, at that time. Now you've got almost an identical situation, different substance. You had an immediate identification of the alleged culprits of 9/11, whereas you did not have an immediate identification of the suspects of the anthrax letters. Now it's reversed. You've got this immediate identification of the Ricin perpetrator. So yeah, it's just an odd scenario, and I think that, like I said, I think that there's is it connected? I don't know, but I can guarantee you what I'm seeing on the news right now, where a lot of these, the fact that this guy is from Tupelo, Mississippi. You're seeing a lot that suggests that he is, in fact, a pro-conservative gun owner, if you will. It's just incredible. Yeah. So once again, you've got motive before thorough investigation, and it's maddening to see this, and it's maddening to see the spin on this. But this is all part of what we have to rise above the chaos and rise above this.
Chaos. You said it perfectly. Order out of chaos. They plan to destabilize us in every which way possible, economically, physically, mentally, emotionally, financially. Well, I said economically. Just
right.
Think of the ways you can be hurt. They're probably planning or already have planned how to do it.
Now we've seen just Ricin to make it, of course, is obviously people can make Ricin. It is not necessarily something that you can do. I mean, you can do it.
I'm not familiar with Ricin. I'm not sure what it is. Obviously, Ricin had in fact, the United States looked into using Ricin for military use back in World War I. At the time, it was being considered for use as like a toxic dust, like a dust cloud against an enemy, or for even coating bullets and shrapnel, especially because of the level of toxicity in Ricin, which is extremely small. In other words, you just need a very small amount. Imagine a dose of a few grains of table salt. That could kill a person. So think how small that is. Think how little of an amount that you would need to kill a person in terms of Ricin. There you have it. But I think what we're seeing right now is the closing. Shall I say, it's not the end, but it's the beginning of the end. I think that we're seeing with especially these events taking place. I think we're, according to my DHS source I spoke with last
It was yesterday now. Expect more of these. Expect more of these attacks, whether it be the Boston type events or these chemical events. Expect more.
And
that's the message.
You are going to be having a report?
Yeah, I was asked. As a matter of fact, I was asked to write something up of our conversation, of our dialogue between my DHS source and myself about the current events, and especially about earlier in the week we saw the metals take a dive, for example, over the weekend and earlier in the week.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in December of last year where my DHS source said when the metals dip, when you see a significant dip in the metals, then of course you know that things are going to start to happen. There will be an acceleration of events, and it's kind of interesting that we saw the metals take a hit, the economy take a hit, but it didn't seem that way, of course. But that's essentially what the manipulation of the metals, and then the incident in Boston, and of course the ricin. So expect more of this. Yes, I'll have a report to answer your question. I'll have a report out here in the next couple of days.
Yeah, and what concerns me about the metals market is I'm reading reports that people are running to sell their metals.
Yeah.
If you want to sell them, that's fine. Just wait till the price goes back up so you can get your monies back.
Well, you know what? I think that really, if you look at this, and this is what I believe, I think that they're trying to get the weaker hands out. And what did V say on Sunday or Monday?
He said a lot.
I mean, in terms of the metals.
He said that they could potentially go down even further. And then there'll be a point where there will not be anything available to buy in the stores.
Right.
What they want is people to do exactly what they're doing. And
from weaker hands to stronger arms is what he
exactly. And don't be fooled by the government dumping gold, because they have so much of it. They can dump 100 tons of gold, and it's nothing to them. There was an article today from Russia Today, and it talked about Cyprus in making a deal with the bailout money they received. They are going to have to put up over $400 million worth of gold, or $500 million worth of gold. Now, the interesting details of the story are not about Cyprus having to put the gold up. It's I'll post this article in the chat. It says gold, the not so precious metal. The gold market took a catastrophic fall after the announcement, and in the past week it has plunged more than $200 an ounce, breaking both the $1,500 and $1,400 threshold, reaching a 30-year record low in just 2 days. Now, that's not a 30-year record low, okay? 30 years ago, gold was what? Maybe $200 an ounce?
When you're talking about record, or you're talking about the lows, it's kind of funny because if you watch one news account, you'll see them talk about the current value of money at the time 30 years previous, or not talk about that. It depends on if you factor in the value of the dollar back in 1980, for example, versus 2013. So is it a record low or is it not a record low?
And just to keep you guys informed, I got an update, or a lady support from Blog Talk Radio says this: we are experiencing site-wide issues. We apologize for the inconvenience and are sorry that this is occurring during your show. The technicians are aware of the problem and are working to fix it now.
Well, thank you. And I just got a report where Justin TV has very good sound quality, so perhaps that's where we should direct everyone to Justin TV.
Yeah, you can listen through the phones if you have free long distance. Call 661-244-9839. You can listen via your phone. We're going to be setting up, we're kind of very busy, but we're working out and talking out how and what the next step should be and where we should go and how we should go about doing it. And we've been throwing around ideas, and we're going to figure it out, and it's going to have to be soon. But we're going to have to just stick with this for now. But we got Troy, and we thank Troy. He does a tremendous job.
Yeah, very much.
Because without him, we'd be off air right now.
Exactly. And my level of frustration is I apologize for that, but we don't. It's we're caught in the middle with we've grown so much so quickly, and every time that we have sound problems, and which makes it sound like amateur hour, to me it's like those of you who believe in us, it's like an assault or an insult to you who believe in us, thinking, well, wait a minute, well, what are they doing? Are they, is this amateur hour? Well, no, there's some things that are just completely out of our control. So
we have over 330 people in chat, and there's no sounds or terrible sound problems.
There are no, or there is terrible.
No, there are bad sound problems. Either people aren't getting the sound, or hearing distortion, or whatever. Chat room, 330 people.
Okay.
So I see that as amazing. I mean,
well, I do too. And it's just frustrating to me because, we want to deliver a quality product, and of course, and we spend way too much time talking about these issues, but deliver a quality product. And if it's necessary for us to actually, somehow transmit from a 50,000 or 100,000 or even a 5,000 watt radio station to give us the base, and people have to understand, what goes into a broadcast. But if we have to do that, we will do that to keep going. And then, of course, looking at a shortwave and what have you. But then a lot of people don't have shortwave radios. So there's really like a very difficult area that we're into. But that said, I want to thank you folks for hanging in there. And just let me rephrase what I said in the first hour. I just saw so much animus between people who are working for the same objective today. I can't believe it. I just can't believe it.
And we talked about this earlier. The Beck attacking Jones at the same time. From everything I saw for a couple of years, I've been following this little melodrama stuff, and Beck will demonize Jones on air, then use his material on his show.
Exactly.
He'll deny that it exists or it is right or real, and then later use it as material when he decides to come around.
Right.
And maybe going back to a different stage of maybe he was playing the part for a long time, and now he's finally coming around. I don't know, but we see it so much. The division, the tearing each other down.
We get emails too where so and so said you're a so-and-so pro
we
agent.
Don't care.
And it's to the point now where once again, that it's divide and conquer, as you said earlier, and it's really this division, this assault against the people who want to get the truth out there is the issue.
And imagine if Glenn Beck and Alex Jones were to partner up in some way.
Oh,
the two audiences are in different. You have different, probably median average age for both shows. You have completely different sides of the same coin, but because of Beck talking bad about Jones, his audience most of them won't go listen to Jones, but some of them will.
Yeah, and that's just, and it's sad because, again, the truth is ultimately the victim here.
Right, and this is not happening just with these two people. It has happened throughout my time watching these other shows, other people talking about what's going on, and it's like they get in or get something out of the drama more than reporting the news, and it's heartbreaking to watch people because they're only destroying themselves.
Heartbreaking, I suppose, is a good word. I mean, last night's program, talking to Pastor Paul Begley, the heart from a pastoral, from a scriptural point of view, biblical point of view, the end times. I mean, this certainly fits in with the talk of the time of the end times, doesn't it? I mean, isn't this what?
And I say anymore. It's more frustrating to watch people tear each other down in our chat room or in each other on all different alternative media outlets than it is to hear what the news is. Because we know what's coming. We know it's going to be bad. But not only is it going to be bad, now you are tearing each other apart when we need each other to sustain through this.
That's very well said. And so, in the last week of news, in the last week of events, in the last, several days, when you look back at the last several days, we went through probably a year's worth of news in the last several days with the manipulation of the metals, with the economic aspects of things, with the situations going on in the Middle East, John Kerry, North Korea, all of these. It reminds me of that song by Billy Joel, "We Didn't Start the Fire," where during that the lyrics named so many events in that song. Now, I'm not advocating the song or whatever, but I'm just saying it just reminds me of that. And when you start ticking off the various issues, is what we're seeing a coordinated series of events? For example, and I'm sure no matter who, and I probably should have said this earlier in the first hour, no matter who is identified as the suspect or suspects in the Oklahoma City. By the way,
there's a conditioning from MSNBC.
You're muted. I think
there's a conditioning from MSNBC.
Yeah, exactly. And see, this is the run-up to this decade's Oklahoma City, because don't forget, the people who were alive and paying attention and adults at that time in 1995 recall the animus against talk radio, for example, and saying that talk radio caused Oklahoma City. And we're going to be doing a very special report on Oklahoma City here, because the anniversary is just 2 days from now. We're going to be doing a very special report on Oklahoma City, taking apart the evidence, because I think we have to revisit that. Joe, this is something you and I have not spoken about, but do we not have to revisit that evidence? Would that not be some level of importance with respect to what we're seeing today?
But not only Oklahoma City, the first World Trade Center.
Absolutely.
The Christmas Day attempted bombing.
Right.
The 7/7 London bombing. The Madrid bombings in 2003. All of the same characteristics. Running drills of the same instances happening, the same scenarios happening. And then, boom, they unfold. And I heard some statistic that it was a 1 in 100 quadrillion chance that could happen more than once, running a drill where the same locations that you're running the drill on are hit with the same type of weaponry you were training against. And then at the same time, while you're running the drills, all your resources to fight the potential happening, if they were to come to real life as it's happening, are diverted in other places, according to other government, especially 9/11.
Right.
They are doing flying exercises with NORAD. They were all over the country. They had fake planes on the radars. They had to actually, you can go listen to the FAA's recordings where they said, okay, stop all the drills so we know which planes are real, because they were chasing ghosts for a while. The NORAD's average response time was like 5 minutes, I think, and 64 out of 64 times before 2000 or before September 11th in 2001, they got to their target within a matter of minutes.
Yeah,
And 9/11, some of the planes flew for over an hour.
Well, as I said too before, when I was in George Norrie on Monday night, I believe it was, or Tuesday morning, NATO, the East Coast, training exercise there, and of course, supposedly that there was that delay. Whether that training exercise was caused by the delay, don't know, but certainly there's this template that we're looking at. There's this numerous examples. Are they being that transparent, Joe? Is the government adhering to this one because it worked, let's say, in Oklahoma City, or because it worked in 9/11 and the 93 Trade Center bombing? Are we seeing the same template being used over and over again, even to the point of perhaps, and I'm saying perhaps, Boston, where there's training drills announced in bang, in the 7/7 attacks in London, where there's training? Are we seeing the same thing happen over and over again?
If they're not following the same template, then
it's the same kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. If they weren't handed a blueprint on how to carry it out, they just went by watching how the other events happened and unfolded.
Okay, because to me, I mean, look, we are not wrong to be a little bit gun shy when we're looking at these events. We are not wrong to say, wait a minute, I'm not sure we're totally on board with your conclusions, meaning the government's conclusions about these events. My only point is, before we bring out the evidence that we have, is to wait to see what direction they're going to take with the evidence that they provide us. I guess that was my whole point of my diatribe, which admittedly I probably didn't deliver too well, and I got very frustrated, because if you sit behind the microphone and you're just getting barraged by issues, including hardwire sound issues, it's just incredible. But don't forget too how quickly the story's changed. The one case that really affected me, Joe, you were really not. The one case that really affected me was the Olympic bombing from 1996. I'm telling you, this guy's life was ruined. I watched this guy's life go down the tubes because of a false accusation, and man, it's incredible. So, and a lot of that information came from the press. The press played such a major role in that by focusing on this Richard Jewell, who admittedly, he didn't handle himself correctly at the first, out of the starting gate. But I've got to tell you, not too many people would, honestly, not too many people would or could at that time, especially under those circumstances of accusations. So we just have to be responsible, be careful, and realize that everyone has a specific agenda. But what's the ultimate question? Who benefits? Who does this benefit?
That's right. Who benefits? And you can be guaranteed they're already calling for it. I did not have time to upload the audio for this specific clip, but more security cameras. I would bet that the TSA is going to have some sort of new plan to be on the highways, more so than they already are. They're going to expand to the point where they're on your street corners. When you go to work, you're going to have to go through the checkpoints. It's going to be that bad, because that will be the next step in the soft martial law. Because when they have that set up, then anytime a switch can lock down every one of those checkpoints wherever they are, and you're stuck until they take you away.
Yeah, exactly. Now, has the mission been accomplished here, regardless of who is going to be named as suspects to the bombing? Look at what this regime has done in the past 4 years. They've achieved the ultimate goal of convincing Americans that they need to submit to these very undignified, very demeaning body cavity searches, basically at airports, now coming to you. As you mentioned, the expansion of the TSA. After this Boston Marathon bombing, there's not going to be any objections left when DHS steps in and says, you know what, we're going to have to, basically treat you as if you're at the airport. And so it has with this particular incident, regardless of who the suspects are, has this one objective been accomplished? That's the big question mark. Is this a fait accompli?
Well, what I'd like to do, the clips I wanted to play when we started having problems that we couldn't, I sent to Troy, and he can play those, one being Dick Cheney, the other being Obama, saying Obama warns, don't challenge the official 9/11 story. So, Troy, at your convenience, you go ahead and play those clips. And
we've never made the case or argued the case that somehow Osama bin Laden was directly involved in 9/11. That evidence has never been forthcoming.
I want to be clear, because I've heard you say this, and I've heard the president say it, but I want you to say it for my listeners, which is that the White House has never argued that Saddam was directly involved in September 11th, correct?
That's correct. We had one report early on from another intelligence service that suggested that the lead hijacker, Mohammed Atta, had met with Iraqi intelligence officials in Prague, Czechoslovakia. And that reporting waxed and waned with a degree of confidence in it and so forth. Has been pretty well knocked down now at this stage. But so we've never made the case or argued the case that somehow Osama bin Laden was directly involved in 9/11. That evidence has never been forthcoming. But that's a separate proposition from the question of whether or not there was some kind of a relationship between the Iraqi government, Iraqi intelligence services, and the al-Qaeda organization.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Because for years, I heard every single person in the government and news agencies say otherwise. The next clip is Obama. Even after all this,
we've never made the case or argued the case that somehow Osama bin Laden was directly involved in 9/11. That evidence has never been forthcoming.
Yeah, that was the same shorter clip. Sorry about that, Troy. The last one I sent you was Obama. But you have this change in story, and
we've never made the case or argued the case that somehow Osama bin Laden was directly involved in 9/11. That evidence has never been forthcoming.
All right.
I'm aware that there's still some who would question or even justify the offense of 9/11. But let us be clear. Al-Qaeda killed nearly 3,000 people on that day. The victims were innocent men, women, and children from America and many other nations who had done nothing to harm anybody. And yet Al-Qaeda chose to ruthlessly murder these people, claimed credit for the attack, and even now states their determination to kill on a massive scale. They have affiliates in many countries and are trying to expand their reach. These are not opinions to be debated. These are facts to be dealt with. These are not opinions to be debated. These are facts to be dealt with.
Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories concerning the attacks of September the 11th, malicious lies that attempt to shift the blame away from the terrorists themselves, away from the guilty.
And there you have it. You're either with us or against us. You're either with the terrorists or you're with us.
Okay, so when you take that and you look at that in hindsight, again, this is back to my original point. When you take this and look at this in hindsight, isn't it much clearer now what the intent was, what the agenda was? Even if that, obviously there was, and I'm not sure exactly when that was recorded after 9/11. I'm talking about the Cheney clip as opposed to the Obama clip. We know the Obama clip obviously was post-2008, so sometime after 9/11, a number of years after 9/11, obviously. So I guess what I'm saying is by listening to specifically Cheney, And by listening to Obama, you can identify the paths that they are taking with respect to the incident, how they're spinning it, how they're exploiting it, and the path they're taking to further erode the rights of American citizens. Of course, not by those clips alone, but by their actions related to their speech and their activities. So this is what I'm saying. We once we know how, or once we have them on record with Boston, regardless of who the suspects are, once we have them on record, then we'll be able to retrofit what we've already found into the equation to better understand where they're headed.
Now, like Sandy Hook, I'm going to ask this question. If it comes out, the truth comes out, I don't know how they would spin it, depending on who actually carried this out, but it doesn't matter.
Well, you mean as to who did it?
Correct, because they've already set the narrative.
That's my point. That's
right.
my point.
Right.
I guess that's my whole point.
They've been building up this anti-government, radical, religious extremism to a point where now they mention it after some terrorist attack on the U.S. and without any proof whatsoever, and now it's embedded in the minds of people. So it doesn't matter, I guess.
No, you're exactly right. What we're witnessing, to take this to a different level, where we are witnessing trauma-based mind control. You've got an incident of this magnitude. You've got an immediate association. This is why I'm angered by this, is because you've got an immediate association, even a premature association in some cases, of perpetrators. The narrative is already there. It's already established. The story is already established before even the suspects are identified. And the arguments are so severe against the people who are trying, even on our side. When I say our side, I'm talking about the people who are trying to warn and warn people and explain what's happening. The arguments, the ripping apart, the going after one another is so severe that it really, doesn't make a difference who the suspects are. 40, 50, 60 years ago it would have, perhaps. But today it seems like it doesn't. So how do you effectively fight that? How do we as watchmen fight that tactic? I guess that would be the correct term. How do we fight that tactic? By not playing the game.
We fight it and also with telling the truth to the best of our ability, exactly. and not, and when we speculate, say it's speculation and say it's opinion, but we're so far down this. I mean, we, like you say, we're a captured operation. Our nation is destroyed. Our currency is destroyed. We're just waiting for the shoe to drop. It's all there. It's all irreversible at this point. And now we have, with the gun bill not passing, Feinstein, Joe Biden crying. We have
literally crying, or
wiping away tears. The headline reads. Bloomberg rages. Feinstein says, "I am really concerned. If anybody cares, vote at least to prospectively ban the manufacturers, the sale, the importation of military-style assault weapons," she said in her remarks on the Senate floor. And what's humorous about this, and not humorous, I find it humorous, is that the assault weapons she's talking about aren't assault weapons. They're semi-automatic handguns. They're shotguns. Automatic weapons are illegal in the United States already, just like bombs. Are you going to ban bombs now? Because maybe we should ban bombs. I want to see Obama go on TV with a straight face and say, we are going to ban bombs, even though they're already illegal, and see how that goes over with his drone campaign. Because how can he condemn a bombing when he himself is part of thousands of them?
Exactly.
And Bloomberg decries death of background check bill in the Senate. Today's vote is a damning indictment of the stranglehold that the special interests have on Washington. I mean, that's what he said. Are you serious? The special interest? The special interests are the ones who got Obamacare passed, are the ones who are pushing this immigration reform, are the ones who, making sure that Monsanto Protection Act goes through. At the same time, legislation like the Food Safety Modernization Act,
right,
which allows them to basically regulate all agriculture in the U.S. on your property. I mean, it's just reading these headlines for the people who don't know better, though, I can see where they can get hooked in and say, well, this and Obama on TV. If they vote this down, they're going against the will of the American people. 90% of American people want guns banned or want background checks or whatever he said. That's not true. That's the opinion of one polling place where I'm sure, just like the election, the results were manipulated. Or you call a select group of people where you already will probably know the answer to. It's dirty tricks, and they've been going on forever, but the people have...
The goal here, Joe, I'm sorry for interrupting, but the goal, isn't it the goal, wouldn't you consider the goal is to destroy all of our culture of constitutionalism, all of our culture of godliness?
I think.
Well,
completely done. We are not a godly nation anymore. We have had abortion in this country for 40 years. They're pushing gay marriage as though it is your First Amendment right or your right to breathe. The currency, the Federal Reserve, is a privately owned corporation, which all of our founding fathers pretty much warned about and said, if you ever let a private company take over the issuing of our currency, they can control you through inflation and deflation until you wake up homeless and broke on the continent your forefathers conquered. That was Thomas Jefferson.
Right. And I'm 100% behind you on that. But let me take a step back or sideways here. The debate the method of debate, I suppose, would be a better way to frame this, tends to divide individual issues into very decidedly separate spheres of discussion. This hyper-focus, this special focus on singular issues, whether it be from gun rights to wars to invasion of privacy, by focusing on these singular issues, does this not drive us away from looking at the bigger interconnected picture? Because, and that's
why we have to strike the balance that we talked about.
Right. And perhaps I was not as articulate as I should have been earlier. I guess this is my point, because each social or political or even ideological conflict that's on the table is being so compartmentalized by the corporate media, by people who might listen to us, but listen to the media because that's all. I mean, listen to the normal shows because that's all they've got. The failure to connect the dots on the larger picture is what is ultimately going to result in our complete demise and that of our children. And I think that this goes back to the public is without this necessary peripheral vision. We are unequipped as a society to comprehend that there is a specific process right now taking place that is really, it's not chipping away at the edges of the fabric of this country. It is going right into the very fabric, into the center part of the fabric, because anyone who's ever taken something to a tailor or something to have a terror or if you rip a suit coat at the seam, for example, it's easy to fix. But if that same suit coat, if you've got a hole in the middle of the back, it's not so easy to fix. So by looking at this philosophy without this peripheral vision, without being equipped to understand that this process of erosion is already in motion and it's eating away at our fabric of liberty, of individual liberties, of our freedoms, even one small bit at a time. We're conditioned to obsess over the smaller pieces and ignore the bigger pieces. We're conditioned to accept and focus on the little tear in the seam of the fabric rather than looking at the big hole in the middle. That's the conditioning process. That is mind control, trauma-based mind control, such as Boston. That's what we're seeing taking place when others go after others, and the media is and everything is so chaotic. That's the result of, in my view, that's the result of what's taking place. But the globalist establishment, the useful socialist, progressive dolts, I don't know how else to describe it.
I haven't heard that in a while.
They've worked extremely hard and long, and they've been very tenacious at this goal. And that's kind of what I'm saying here, because they're dragging people into this, into that very same mindset. So it's to their intention is not to introduce a greater understanding or awareness, or even bring about a truth into the discussion. It's not about our public good. It's not about our public safety. And at the very core of this, it's not about the truth. Because if people, if people cared, if the media really cared about the truth, or if the people who claim to be truth seekers really cared about the truth, if their objectives were honorable, they would not feel the need to just constantly rip and tear and shred and aggressively go after others that we're seeing taking place. I'm not talking about us. I'm talking about just within the So this gives the power, leads that gives them the upper hand in this, and we can't allow that to happen.
No, we can't. And there's an answer to this out there. We can be divided along ideas about where we believe our country needs to go, and deal with that later. One thing we all can be united is hedging our protection with the Lord, building our spiritual selves with Him, so we are stronger people, so we have more discernment, more authority in the Lord, and we are doing His will. Because when we are doing His will, we're not doing our own. And when we're doing His will, that's when good things happen. That's where good things come from. When we're doing our own, not so much, especially in my case.
In mine too, and I think that goes for everyone as well. It's a very difficult position to accept, or a very difficult mindset to accept sometimes, because our tendency is to do our will and the heck with everything else, and not listen to that spiritual voice of discernment within us. And that's when we get into trouble. And that's when I get into trouble, big trouble.
Me too. And I think that's the case for all of us. We're up against the top of the hour break again. Folks, thanks for hanging in there with us. You're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. We're going to take your calls, if we can, after the break. 661-244-9839 is the number. If that doesn't work, we'll give you the backup number on the other side. Stay with us.
Hi folks, Doug Hagmann here. You might know me as the co-host from the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, or as a frequent guest on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. If you're like me, you're tired and confused over today's headlines. You just don't know where to turn for accurate, concise information about really what's going on, what's truly going on in today's society. If you don't know where to turn for accurate, well-researched, and properly vetted news, I've got a suggestion. In fact, it's a requirement. Bookmark Canada Free Press. That's canadafreepress.com on the internet. It's just not for Canada. It's for news across the world. Judy McLeod, founding editor, has put together a vast array of talented writers like Kelly O'Connell, Daniel Greenfield, Dr. Eileen Johnson-Powell, a lot of guest columnists, very talented writers. Folks, that's Canada Free Press at canadafreepress.com. Now mobile friendly. Follow on Facebook, because without America, there is no free world.
Well, the big question at the Supreme Court today is whether or not you can patent a human gene. Sounds like a simple question, but it has gotten quite complicated. The plaintiffs in this case are medical societies and patient advocacy groups. The case is against a biotech company called Myriad Genetics. Now, this company has patents on two genes called BRCA1 and BRCA2. Testing for these two genes, the mutation of these two genes, can determine if a patient is at risk for developing breast cancer. Myriad says they spent billions of dollars over the span of decades on research and tests in identifying these genes, but opponents of these gene patents say that no one person, no company has the right, has a patent to the human body, and they are saying that doing so is preventing and blocking other companies from moving forward with their own research, with their own development, and possibly creating treatments to breast cancer. We even had breast cancer patients coming forward saying that the patents on these genes have prevented them from getting the test that they need and leading to a possible diagnosis and getting the treatment that they need. Now the question today is whether or not the Supreme Court can consider isolated genes a product of nature. Typically we see the Supreme Court siding with patents, with patent laws, but today it played out differently, and that is because we are talking about the human body. We even had Justice Sonia Sotomayor saying that the leaves of plants are gold naturally found in nature, that they are made in nature, that they are naturally occurring, and therefore you can't put a patent on those substances. So it seemed as if the justices were leaning towards the plaintiffs in this case. Now, we should point out that patents on human genes, they have been happening for decades. So a decision in this case could have huge implications on medical research for decades and decades to come. A ruling in this case is expected before the end of summer. In front of the
Survival of the fittest. In any and all situations, survival is your #1 priority. That requires being tough and thinking smart. And the folks at Freeze Dry Guy are going to help you do just that. They have the long-range patrol ration entrees, what they call the Brick Pack. When you're in survival mode, it is absolutely the best item for your survival pack or bug-out bag. You can go farther, faster, and carry more food with the LRP cold weather ration entrees. Not only do these long-lasting, durable entrees help sustain you or your family through the harshest environment or situation, they are by far the most delicious of their kind. No contest. With a variety of tasty entrees, you can't beat the LRP Brick Packs. Let Freeze Dry Guy help you in your survival situations. Go to freezedryguy.com. That's freezedryguy.com, or call 866-404-3663. That's 866-404-FOOD.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the third and final hour of this Wednesday, April 17th, 2013. We are going to be taking your calls this hour.
If we can.
Yeah, if we can. The commercial sounded a little choppy. We're sounding choppy. And the intro, we love that. But I'd settle for a little bit of truth and a lot of good sound quality right now, more than anything. But
how about a lot of both?
How about a little both? Yeah. But no, we need to focus the majority of our energy instead of trying to figure out who did what. Is it a false flag? Was it not? There are people out there that are going to do that. If we don't have ourselves, our own house in order, if we don't have our own families in order, if we don't have our own souls right with the Lord, we shouldn't be spending time trying to point out anything from anyone else, no matter good or bad, because we are, maybe not, I shouldn't say that like that. We need to focus on ourselves. Right.
Right.
First, foremost. Breaking news. Don't know if this can be confirmed. Lake Dog in chat says, large explosion at fertilizer plant in town of West Texas near Waco. Thanks, Lake Dog. And I don't know. We'll definitely keep you guys updated if we get information on that. Also, Dianne Feinstein says background checks would not have prevented Newtown. Dianne Feinstein, Mr. President, I'm sure the background checks will stop many would-be murderers, but they would not have prevented Newtown. This is off real clear politics today. The weapons were legally purchased by this mother, and while she was disturbed, he was disturbed. He had no criminal record or a record of mental illness and would not have been subject to a background check because his mother gave him these weapons. Let me be clear. Universal background checks are very important. I strongly support them, but they would not have prevented the tragedy in Newtown. And I know this is more getting into the semantics, but isn't this what people have been saying? And the media has just tried to make these people look foolish who say it? I mean, have you seen clips talking about?
Well,
like Ted Cruz. The MSNBC was tearing him apart.
Right.
For saying the exact same thing.
Correct. So where do we go? I mean, how do we handle this? I mean, where do you go from here? Well, look, laws, and Steve Quayle says, you're not going to. There are no political solutions to spiritual problems. Banning guns of any type, expanding the background investigations, they're not going to stop the street thugs, the gang members. They're not going to stop any of this. Our country has no interest in stopping the flow of illegal immigration from the southern border into the United States. They've got no interest at all in that, despite what is being said by Janet Napolitano and Obama and others, and by people who are saying, we've put more money and more effort into securing the border. That's not, in reality, that's not the case. Now, the money issue may be the case, that there might be more money earmarked for that or on the books destined for that, but that's not the reality. It's not being used for that purpose. We have to understand that. Now, with respect to the laws, we have to enforce the laws that are on the books, that were made in good faith for the purpose of cleaning things up. But we're not seeing that at all. We are absolutely not seeing that at all. So, the answer, we're not going to find the answer in new laws. We're not going to find the answer in the expansion or the resurrection of the assault weapons ban that we saw back in the 90s. We're not going to find the answer in any of this. The heart of the problem lies in the culture, in the hearts, in the souls, and even in the minds of people.
Mike, your microphone's rubbing on your tie.
There, thanks. Thank you very much.
We have confirmed mass casualty incident after monster explosions in Waco, Texas. Large swath of West Texas leveled, felt 65 miles away.
So when I appeared on Coast to Coast and on Alex+Jones, and I said expect more. Now, obviously, it's we don't know the nature of the explosion. We don't know what it's going to be attributed to, but nonetheless, I'm getting confirmation here.
Yeah.
As
Emergency crews from throughout Central Texas responded Wednesday night after a major explosion at a burning fertilizer plant in north of Waco. West firefighters were dispatched to the plant earlier in the evening after an earlier fire rekindled. The explosion was reported around 7:50 p.m. in a frantic radio call from the scene. Just from the scene off the fire at West Fertilizer at 1471 Jerry Mesh off Interstate 35. And whoever wrote this article needs to do some editing. Several buildings were reportedly destroyed. A nearby nursing home was damaged. There were reports people were trapped inside the nursing home and the apartment buildings. Scanner traffic indicated that some residents of both the nursing home and the apartment building were severely injured. Children are among the victims, according to the reports from the scene. Department of Public Safety troopers transported some victims to the hospital in patrol cars, and a triage area was established in the intersection of Haven and North Reagan Streets, but it was later moved to Marble and Meadow Street because of potentially toxic smoke from the fire. 6 helicopters were out en route to West and were landing at the baseball field in Tokyo Road, south of town. Let's see, I'm looking here. West Middle School was one of the buildings reported to be in the fire. I don't see any confirmed people that have been killed. They're not saying yet. It might be too early. But this is at a fertilizer plant. That's a little suspicious. Not because I believe some lone wolf or some terrorist did this. And this is my speculation, my reaction off this reading the report, basically live as the news is coming in. This fertilizer plant, we've seen the Department of Homeland Security PDFs. They warn about the vulnerable targets over and over and over again, being our infrastructure, through cybersecurity, to roads, bridges, to nuclear plants, water facilities. This would definitely be on that list. Now,
I agree, and I want to thank B for sending this. This happened at 7:50 p.m. local time. A fireball nearly 100 feet high was reported, along with a massive power outage. And as you reported, as you said, Joe, a large swath of the town of West in Texas was basically leveled. This, according to WFAA in Dallas. And it's also heard on the scanner, and at least 10 other buildings are on fire, in addition to the primary building that housed the fertilizer. It heard on the scanner where there was a major collapse on the second floor of a nearby building where children were thought to be trapped. Did you see that at all? Oh my goodness! So there are photos on Twitter. Apparently, those who know how to grab those were from Twitter, and also from the WFAA TV Dallas. I believe they have some photographs as well, but this is not a small explosion. And as you reported, nursing home.
My phone's getting New York Times, USA Today alerts of this news right now. So
all right. So, once again, regardless of the cause, you look at what's taking place and how this will be spun. I'm very concerned. You talk about Waco, near Waco. And, of course, look what happened as an alleged result of Waco, of course.
When did Waco happen? Do we know the date?
Well, yeah, you mean the siege at Waco?
Yeah, I guess what day did it start
April,
and what day did it burn down?
Well, okay. And this is something that people really have to pay attention to. The siege actually began on the 28th of February of 1993, and guess when it ended violently? On the 19th of April. 50 days later. Why on the 19th of April did this end? You see, April is, as we had talked before, in the Illuminati sense. April is the first month of the year, April 1st being the New Year's Day for the Illuminati. You've got just quite a few days of, you had Oklahoma City on the 19th, you had Waco on the 19th, and according to, if you believe official reports, Oklahoma City, they selected that day to because of the Waco incident that happened on April 19th of 93, 2 years earlier. So all of this, now you've got on April 17th the explosion of a fertilizer plant near Waco that takes out half of the city, or a large swath of the city, named West Texas.
Is not April the first? Is New Year? Isn't the New Year for Israel?
It is indeed. In fact, they just celebrated their New Year a day or two ago. So yes.
Okay, and the Middle East, like countries like Jordan and Saudi Arabia, all the countries that are surrounding Israel, do they follow the same calendar?
The Hebrew calendar? No, they follow the Islamic calendar, which
is it the same New Year, kind of, in April?
No.
Okay.
No. So, and the mistake here is to equate, for example, the Hebrew calendar with the Babylonian calendar. Where I'm specifically referring to the Babylonian calendar, we use, of course, a Gregorian calendar, but the Hebrew calendar is nothing like, or is not directly related to what the Illuminati uses, that being the Babylonian calendar. So we have to be careful not to mix this together. But
I'm just going to say, one of the signatures of socialist left-wing extremist is to blow up fertilizer plants. And did you see that clip on CNN where the guy said, it's most likely a hydrogen peroxide, talking about the explosions in Boston. It's most likely a hydrogen peroxide style bomb. But there is a chance that it could be some homemade, unknown type of bomb that right-wing extremists use.
But see, neither one were really correct. And that goes back to my point. That goes back to my initial point. Because, look, TATP, that's very common in the Middle East, or I shouldn't say the Middle East, but TATP, which is a hydrogen-based type bomb, is very common with suicide bombers and homicide bombers, more appropriately. Black powder bombs, or bombs of lesser potential, and are not. So to draw conclusions simply from the material would be a mistake.
So we've had 2 explosions in 2 days, and I'm sorry, this is the 3rd day. Marathon was Monday?
Right, that's correct. No, the marathon was Monday. That's correct.
No, we had
Wednesday.
guests on, yeah.
And we had that's right. And the explosion in Waco was at 7:50 1950 hours of local time today.
So if this is a reported act of terrorism, I would guess or bet, maybe not bet, there might be a third. They do things in these packs of threes. It seems a lot of the times. Not going to take 3 9/11s, but they have and people in the chat room are talking about the new moon and the cycles of the feast days and how these long calendars based on the lunar cycles. And I know there are cult teachings that say you should start new ventures, new things, ideas on the new moon because the energy.
Yeah, you're talking about New Age stuff now, right?
Right. This is astrology. And they really believe that if you start like a business, we'll say, on the new moon, it has, X amount of % chance, more likelihood of being successful, just based on the fact that you started it on a new moon. And that belief is, for whatever reason, popular among these people. And for what, I don't know why. It's a superstition, I guess. And this goes to show you how deceived these people really are. You don't need to go by the cycle of a moon. You just need to ask the Lord. But how can you ask the Lord to help you when you're bringing about evil? You can't. So I guess you only can rely on things that won't make a difference anyway. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
Let's see if the phones work. We have several people on hold, and we're going to go to 408 first. 408 area code, you're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. 408. All right. Moving along here. I'm looking for Jeff. I know Jeff in Chelsea, Massachusetts. I was hoping he's going to call. It's been a long time since we've heard from him. And
hopefully he wasn't anywhere near that, of course, anywhere near the blast. But
do we know the area code of?
We no.
Okay.
But that's fine. Yeah, I'm just hoping that the phones are in play because I'd like to get your view of what we're seeing taking place. What's your view? What have you been hearing as well? Are you of the same mindset or similar mindset? I'd like to hear about that as well.
So if our blog talk phones aren't working, you can call my dad's personal line after the show.
Sure.
From your opinion. We're going to move on. Area code.
I just want to say this. I want to say thank you, B. Breaking news, hospital told to anticipate 100 people with injuries after the fertilizer plant explosion in the town of West Texas. This according to the hospital CEO in a report to CNN. So you're looking at a huge casualty.
You just reminded me of something. The Newtown victims' families were in the stands of the Boston Marathon.
And of course, that last
26
miles,
26 dead. Rachel Maddow did a little piece on that. There were 26 dead in Newtown. 26 miles in the marathon.
Okay.
Whatever that means, I don't know.
Okay. But all of these little tidbits are things that we need to keep in a pile of anecdotal evidence that we can at some point after people are identified, we can look and say, okay, how does this match up? From what perspective do we look at this? Do we look at this in a macro type perspective or perspective, or should we look at this? So this is what we have to do in order to really create an accurate picture of what we're seeing, because there is anticipation of things that take place after things like this deliberate terrorist attack takes place. So let's try the phones again.
We're going to go back to the phones, and if we can't get through, if we can't have phone calls here, we have an alternative number via Cuban. He has a number set up, a backup number. So area code 306, we're coming to you now. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Good evening, guys. How are you doing?
Well, I've had better days, but how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. John chapter 14, verse 12 through to 15. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that believeth on me, the works that I do shall he do also, and greater works than these shall he do, because I go unto my Father. And whatsoever ye shall ask in my name, that will I do, that the Father may be glorified in the Son. If ye shall ask anything in my name, I will do it. If ye love me, keep my commandments. And that's just
Amen.
Hearing Joe talk earlier there about
Amen.
People going to things that have no stock and putting their foundation on that instead of their foundation on the rock and the Word and what we're told in the Word.
You hit the nail right on the head. It is very difficult to watch not people, not our listeners so much, but the people of the world, and whether they're believers or not, some, I don't know, but so focused on things that have no importance to their eternal situation, which is the most important thing. I think we all need to get straight first, obviously. That's common sense for people who understand God in the Bible. I guess I would like to ask you if you've ever come across any ideas or had any positive stories of reaching a unbeliever or somebody on the fence to get them to see things in a different perspective, to where they need to, because this could help people in the way they feel. People feel frustrated. They don't know what to do. They see this, bombings going on. It's not in their control.
No.
The gun violence, the mass shootings, that's not in their control. I guess the Lord set up this beautiful system that if we trust in Him, He will provide everything for us when we need it and how He wants it to be. And people would find comfort in that, you'd think. But we see the opposite. You hear, don't try to jam your beliefs down our throat. That type of comments.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I'm just putting it out there. How could we reach the unbelievers, not the deniers, the people maybe who aren't fully aware or understanding of what's happening, in a way that we could be effective? And that goes to anybody on hold or wants to call in, and to you also, caller, if you have any ideas on that, because people are going to be looking for answers when these things continue and get worse and worse and worse in a faster rate than they are now. And that seems maybe like it's impossible at this today. How can it get any worse? But
with what's going on in the world, it's pretty unreal. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I appreciate your call. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we let you go?
I would just like to say that I don't know if it could be arranged, but you guys might be interested with Doug's interest in the Illuminati and the Luciferian agenda. Another pastor, Bible-based, only bring your KJV, Mike Hoggard, Pastor Mike Hoggard of Bethel Church in Festus, Missouri. He might be an interesting guest to have. He has some great insight and is not afraid to point you to the Bible.
Did you send me an email about him today or yesterday or within the last couple of days?
Because I haven't within the last couple of days, no.
Okay, because I was looking into him to see if we can have him on. In fact, I received a couple of emails about him, and in fact, he sounds like a very interesting person to have on to talk about the Illuminati perspective and the occult and how that is affecting us or how that is not affecting it, how the influence there is there to dilute and to pervert our belief system. So I will do that.
It's incredible.
Thank you very much for that.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it really is.
How they twist and construe things.
Yeah, and that's what really got my interest is how effective they are at doing this, and how many people have fallen for this or are falling for this this misdirection. So that's where I am in terms of investigating.
And that's what it comes down to at this point, I think, Doug, is that it's people falling for it and not people being oblivious to what's going on around them. Everybody can see that, there's tragedy in the world and there's terror in the world, and not everybody sees that it's orchestrated. It's the deception. We're moving very quickly into that period in the Bible that it talks about, the great deception, where even the elect should be deceived, if that were possible.
Indeed. Well, yeah, we'll have him on. I'm sure we will. Just from my notes I'm looking at here about him, it sounds like someone who could really enlighten us from a religious or spiritual perspective into the perversion of or what's being taught. So I want to thank you for that.
Yeah, very biblical. May God bless you guys.
Very much.
Have a great night.
Thank you very much.
God bless you, caller, and thanks for the call. Thanks for the verse, too, because that was very timely. And
very timely.
Yes. And that's always a little confirmation for me when we get callers and they kind of go along when you're thinking about something and you're thinking about something a certain way, and you have somebody call in and hits it right on the head the way you're thinking. It does the soul good. 317. This might be Jeff. Area code 317. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi, Joe. Hi, Doug. It is Chad.
Oh, Chad. How you doing?
I'm good. Good. I wanted to. Thanks for taking my call, Joe. Hey, Doug. I had said something a while back when I had called in about how this world cannot deal, and Satan cannot deal with a person who walks by the Spirit. And I have another way of putting that for you and maybe some of the listeners that may be easier to comprehend.
Okay.
God's word is, it uses the term covenant, but in today's lingo, if we could use the word contract, it might help people understand that. God's word is our contract for life and everything that we need to live. And it's the only thing we need to live. And so when we walk in that contract, we have everything that we need for provision for life. And when we walk out of that, when we accept riders to that contract, or when we omit things from that contract, is when we get in trouble. And so when we think about, and so if you're not a part of that contract, you're accursed apart from it. There's just no salvation for you. But the contract itself, to accept the contract, says it comes with a curse as well. It comes with a default. And to help people understand that grace is that God accepted and took the punishment for the contract himself. And so now you have the contract with God and the contract with the world. And so when we
they don't mesh, do they? I mean, they are not. You can't have both. I mean, it's like oil and water, right?
Right. And now when we think about laws and portals and ways and avenues by which Satan gets to us, I want, if we think about all the things that we verbally and orally agree to and all the contracts that we've signed our names to, what we essentially do is we give avenues and means by which the adversary can get to us, because we agree to things to sustain us or for needs that, it's the means. We give a legal authority. Now,
how do you avoid that? How do you actually?
we have to grow up into it. I mean, I'm speaking to myself here as much as I am to anybody else, because we don't wake up to these things all at once. I mean, we grow and learn these things. A lot of these things were not taught. You have, some of the very spiritual leaders on there with Steve and others who can talk to us about these things. They're mature in their faith. They'll tell you. The scripture says, "Owe no man nothing." And how do you live with that? Many of us, our fathers, didn't teach us that. So we were trained and raised up in a mindset that doesn't go with that. And we have to grow up into those things. But as soon as we realize these things, then we have to cut ourselves loose from them to the best of our ability. And then we have to seek our Father to help us be rid of those things. There's consequences that have to be dealt with that we will have to face as a result of some of these things that can't be done. It's just. But when it comes to these things that we're seeing in this world and bring it to a practical level, when we see this chaos erupting, and I wanted to speak to this, you talk about this chaos, and I heard your frustration, Doug and Joe, and I feel it too, the frustration of how do you deal with this? Well, you deal with it by walking in the Spirit, and I think this is what Joe's point was. When you walk in the Spirit, Satan can't deal with you because you're not dealing with him on his contract. You're dealing with him on the Lord's contract, in which he has no ground.
That makes sense.
His accusations, his accusations of us are according to God's word. When he condemns us by Christ and God's righteousness. When he condemns us, because he got us to accept writers or to admit or omit parts of God's word. And that's where we have the condemnation. That's what the scripture says. That we're condemned. Where the law came in, sin took opportunity of the law and condemned me. That's what I'm just saying that in another way.
When you think that through, that makes sense.
So what we have to do is learn God's word, repent for those things where we see we're in error, and the more we come into agreement with God's word, the less means our adversary has to find his way into our lives. And the more we get closer to him, the more authority you will have in your heart to speak to those things that are right. And spiritually, we become protected. Where we come into God's shelter, then he can deal with those who try to come against us because we're in his will. And it's an individual.
I barely hear you. And I don't know if you can hear us clear, but can you hear him, Dave?
No, I'm starting to put it now, too. Yeah, but okay. I got in what... Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry I lost you guys, but I hope you heard part of that anyway.
Chad, thanks for the call. We're going to let you go. Sorry about that. Yeah, sorry about that. It just went just totally digitized, and we apologize. But I'm glad he got that point across, and walking in the Spirit and the frustration. And you're right. When you stray from that walk in the Spirit and enter into the walk of without the Spirit covering you, then there's a tremendous level of frustration that can overtake. And obviously, you heard it. Yeah, it's present. And yesterday, all through last night and today, I studied the Bible. I just felt I needed to not worry about Boston, not worry about right-wing extremists or see propagandists. Exactly. And I just needed to study the Word, and I did that. And I felt good until I came here. And then he started yelling at me and hitting me. Okay. The sound problems really are frustrating, especially when we can't even hear each other because the reception's so bad. But it's okay. I know that it will be fixed, and we will move on. But for all the people that need to hear what Chad was saying, because he's saying it was very important.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, look, I you leave that venue of the spirit thing, just investigating all of this data, just amassing all of this data, cataloging all of this. We're a very small operation, so we don't have researchers. It's us, and when we do this, and you get into that moment, and you get caught up into this wave, this pattern of collection and analysis and such, it's very easy not to allow that veil of protection over you or walk in that protection. So it's we all have those moments. Yeah. And I got to tell you too, it's like being in a ring with Mike Tyson or some, I don't know, whoever the big fighter is now. It's just not. It's just not a single punch. For example, if from one spot where you can see coming, it's a punch. It's a series of blows, none of which you can see coming from different angles, and at the end you feel pretty much like you can put through a meat grinder. And I'm talking about, when we have the sound issues, when we have people who say, "How dare you put up some Islamic promotion on your website when it's merely a rotation of a ad by Google," when we have asked them not to do that, and yet something just happens to slip through. Just at the very moment, someone who is hypersensitive to something happens to see something that's bad on our website, and then screams to high heaven and causes these. It's these unreasonable demands. Take it down. I'll never visit your website. I'll never listen to your show. I'll never send you a penny because of your apostasy. Yet, it's like, holy cow, man! All of a sudden, to speak to the other side of that, it's even though it's Google Ads, if they're doing that, isn't it our duty to get rid of that? Okay. Well, of course. No. People have to understand it, and let me just get into the reality of things here. Yes, I have in every step imaginable with, for example, Google Ads to say, okay, no pornography, nothing over a G-rated ad, nothing Islamic, basically.
That's discrimination. And we're talking about Google. We're talking about the government. You know who we're dealing with.
Right. Okay. So here is my option. I remove all of the Google advertising, and I lose the revenue is gone, and then pretty soon we're done, because we have some very faithful supporters, and I want to thank them. But okay. So
let me say this: I agree with you to a certain extent that it would definitely hurt, but by doing the right thing and remaining faithful to the Lord, He won't let that happen.
Okay, well, that's fine. Then I'm blowing everything, and I guess me,
great. Find out if there are options. Pray about it, and then make a decision after a couple of days when everything is settled and you've thought about it, and when you're tired, when you're happy, all the different phases we go through during the day, because we don't need the trouble and hassle. We have enough emails, people trying to figure out how to listen, and that we need to answer, let alone emails about stuff we can't control except getting rid of.
It's really funny, in my investigation of this, is a lot of times it was ads driven by search terms used That's one of the things that we don't have. But it might come with it. There might be driven by a search term that is objectionable. It's kind of interesting how that works. So a lot of actually the person that the actual person that might be complaining with is using a specific search term that creates the creation. So it's just pretty bizarre. It really is.
Did you tell me when you see ads like that, when the campaign was going on, when you saw an Obama ad, you click on it because it costs them money?
Yeah. It's they pay to have those ads in there. So, if you want to think like the enemy, for example, or I'm sorry, if you want to defeat the enemy and think like, warrior, look at the ad, because every click that you make costs them X amount of cents or dollars or whatever. And, it works against the ad maker. But I thought I had pretty, very rigid. I guess we'll have to go over this again and look at this. That's pretty rigid. Okay, let's move on. Let's see if we can get it's such fast on. Well, I don't think I'll be able to take any more calls. I can try. Larry, 318. We're going to grab you now. 318. You are live on the Hagmann report, I think. Maybe not. 318. Are you there? No. Okay. Let me refresh the studio and see if I can't get the look up more pictures than just audio. Because when we started the show, it didn't sound and it took me about 10-15 minutes to log back in to log out. So if you be having some issues tonight, today it's not. So let's see if you can get a call to in on number 31252. 321-252. I want to say this too. I just received an email from Explosive Ordnance Technician who said that fertilizer just does not explode by itself. It has to be combined with specific amounts of other precursor compounds to be explosive. Yes, that's a great point because you cover those other elements near fertilizer due to the risk of explosion. And fertilizer bombs are things like this happened in the past, but we'll continue to investigate this. A couple of things. And I'm even hesitant to get into this. Speculation continues, and I received this as with a note. And I want to thank Jim for sending this in. Basically, there was an article by Matthew Vadum published today, this Boston Blame Game, saying the speculation continues to rage over who bombed the Boston Marathon. The progressive left has been doing its best to paint the enemies, of course, in the Tea Party category as the likely perpetrators without any evidence whatsoever. Some progressive commentators hedged in their statements acknowledge that nobody knows for sure who was behind the attack. Anyway, the first bombing of a U.S. target since 9/11, according to Mr. Vadum. But anyway, you played the clip, I believe, or mentioned David Axelrod refusing, one senior advisor, Obama senior advisor, David Axelrod, according to Matthew Vadum, said, we can't let this the crisis go to waste. He acknowledged that there's very little hard evidence at the moment to point to anything on the Christian right, but that has not stopped him from saying what he said. And I think he pointed at one point, either yesterday or today, it was about Tax Day and about Patriots Day. And then, of course, we had already talked about Chris Matthews blaming everything on the right, stating incorrectly that normally domestic terrorist people tend to be on the far right, which is I think we've proven that to be false. But an interesting column by Matthew Vadum. And don't forget, right-wing terrorist attacks have been rare. Conservative. I'm gonna use conservative. Even if you say you're off. I'm gonna say conservatives have been rare. Anarchists try to blow up the GOP National Convention in Minnesota back in 2008. People don't remember this. People don't remember things like this, or they're not pushed in the media. They're not talked about in the media. So it's an interesting thing.
If we were to take the right-wing, alleged right-wing terrorist attacks, one would be Oklahoma City, but that's at face value. That's
even McVeigh, who was executed in 2001. He didn't say much about it, but he didn't say much about his personal beliefs.
No,
at all. Yeah.
I want to say, I don't know if it was who I was listening to, but they talked about a cellmate was talking with him, and he told the cellmate that, and the cellmate also confirmed that they were military or some kind of higher up law enforcement personnel that were coming to see him on a regular basis, not lawyers. This was different from that. And he said, if he said anything, they would kill his family. So he couldn't tell the truth. And it's interesting how I think Timothy McVeigh's attorney or handler was the same as the Unabomber or the Jared Lee Loughner. There's a very similar, there's a small group of people, lawyers, and it might even be the same person that have been in the mind control cases. It's always the same people that show up as the lawyer or the doctor. And he was, Timothy McVeigh's lawyer doctor was one of those doctors.
Well, and a lot of this takes us away from the happenings in the Middle East. We know things are about to blow in the Middle East. Of course, we've got the diversion with North Korea. But look at what's taking place in the Middle East after Libya, after Gaddafi was overthrown. Weapons went from Libya to Syrian rebels, Algerian terrorists, and Al Qaeda in Mali. We know these things because we've been reporting them, because people have been leaking this information out. It's not because former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton testified necessarily to these facts. In fact, Obama announced he had ordered the U.S. military to intervene in Libya's revolution on March 19th of 2011, stressing that our military involvement would be exclusively by air, okay? And he said, we will not, and I repeat, we're not going to deploy any U.S. troops on the ground. Yet 10 days later, in an interview with NBC News, Obama suggested he just might provide arms to Libyan rebels. Not ruling it out, not ruling it in, of course. But in the end, what do we see? In the end, of course, we saw the incident in Benghazi. And what happened in Benghazi? Or why did Benghazi happen? Well, after analysis, careful analysis, Benghazi we found was a CIA operation that was arming the anti-Assad rebels. Did it quit? No. They just relocated. Now arms are coming from other places, including but not limited to Croatia, to the anti-Assad rebels, to the Free Syrian Army. These are the very people, and Joe, you pointed this out too, these are the very people who are essentially
against Israel. They're setting up their caliphate. They're setting up their demise.
And I think we have to look at what's taking place in the macro scene, and I've written articles to this effect of late. You take a look at the larger picture. Everything is ripping apart now. You've got everything is falling apart, but our attention is being diverted from the larger picture into this mosaic of smaller images, this pictures and pictures, and this is by design. So when we look at these things, whether it be Boston, we have to wait to see how this particular regime, the Obama regime, is going to handle this, what direction they're going to take this in, and then again we can assemble the evidence together that we've got to see if it comports with the official narrative.
Don't forget, we have the Columbine anniversary coming up on Hitler's anniversary of his birthday on the 20th of April. A lot of things have happened. Well, aside from Columbine, afterwards on that day.
And Marianne pointed this out, and I've been studying this as well, and thank you, Marianne, for sending this. In Satanism, April 19th through the 26th, it's a huge occult time for the Satanists, for the Luciferians. We have to watch these dates carefully and look at the potential for blood sacrifices, and in particular, if you believe it or not, children in particular. So this is something that we have to watch for, April 19th through the 26th. And did we not receive information as well that April 11th through the 22nd would be a critical time period to watch out for? And what happened during that time period, of course, is Boston and other things that we're seeing take place right now. So with that, my friends, we've concluded another show.
Thanks for hanging in there with us with the sound issues.
Yeah, really, thank you. Thank you so much.
And you can send BTR your thoughts. No, we will have this worked out, and God bless each and every one of you. We will see you tomorrow night at the same time. We will have our stuff together, and we will be ready to go. And if Blog Talk's not ready to go, then we'll just get a bullhorn and make sure it's big enough to reach you. Have a good night, everybody.